Welcome everybody to the Vinny Eastwood Show. We'll be starting up in a minute. It's a little bit different today. This show is officially brought to you by the New Zealand Public Party and Billy Te Kahika. So we'll be coming to him in just a moment, ladies and gentlemen, once he's done sharing out the links. If this is your first time watching an episode of the Vinny Eastwood Show, just remember, I'm an idiot. So you can... You could essentially expect that some foolish things may happen. All right, so here we go. We've got the backup stream all going.
Here we go.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vinny Eastwood Show, the lighter side of genocide. Just because we're being exterminated doesn't mean we can't make it fun. Otherwise, what's the point of being killed? The Vinny Eastwood Show, where the only thing worse than living in a high-tech global police state is Vinny's jokes. And my very special guest joining me today from the New Zealand Public Party is Billy Te Kahika, the man himself who's become somewhat of a phenomenon in recent times, not for his music, but for his political ideology of not giving into United Nations scumbaggery and world government and the subsequent enslavement and extermination of the human race, which is incidentally the very first party that has ever done such a thing, to even name the UN Agenda 21 or something like that, apart from the Green Party, as we revealed on the show yesterday, who had Agenda 21 as part of their policy on their website, and then when I exposed it, they removed it, and then replaced the listing on their website with something that looked remarkably similar to the UN Agenda 21 protocols anyway. So if it's not word for word, it's there in spirit. Billy, welcome to the show.
Kia ora. Thank you, Vinny. Great to be here. Long-term fan of yours.
All right, thank you very much. One of the few. Now, I believe that there is an awful lot of things going down in New Zealand at the moment, and one of the chief among mine concerns as a new parent is the possibility of forced vaccines and all of these kind of things. And again, no party that I know of has actually come out and put in their actual policies on their actual page that we don't want forced vaccines. We don't want the pharmaceutical companies essentially telling government what is good health policy and what isn't. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, correct. So what we stand for is some really basic and important principles as a public movement. Number one is freedoms and rights. Number two is keeping this government accountable. And number three, public safety. Number four, economic wisdom and expertise to get us out of the crisis that we're going into that involves every New Zealander and our economy. And then, of course, medical and environmental sovereignty and freedom as well. So I am like you, Vinny, I'm completely shocked that not one of the other parties, any of them, have adequately addressed this threat to freedoms and protections of our rights. And I'm equally as astounded that other minor parties are having to go at us for taking that approach. I got asked a very good question on 1ZB News Talk yesterday during an interview, and the guy said to me, "Look, is your stance? Are you an anti-vaccination person, or is this about freedoms?" And I said, "Well, actually, the science and the medical basis for vaccination, as we know, is controversial. I don't think it is. I'm pretty clear on the issue myself, but primarily it's about choice and freedom, and none of us want a Bill Gates vaccination needle in the arms of our babies."
Yeah. And you yourself are the father of a vaccine-damaged child, right?
Correct. Yes, exactly that. And so I've lived through the issue as a parent, and I've lived through the reality of it. I've studied the topic now for about 15 years. I'm a big fan of Dr. Suzanne Humphreys. Been looking at her work, but I've also studied the criminal behaviour of the Centre for Disease Control in the US, which really is like the FDA. They regulate the standard for approach by governments when approaching the vaccination topic, and they've been proven dishonest. They've been proven criminal, and actually, what's happening with President Trump? He's actually starting to pull the veil open as to the corrupt behaviour of these types of organisations that are too close to the pharmaceutical industry to be trusted.
Now, let's think about broader perspectives on this one, because what we're talking about is essentially taking a party from nobody knows about it to getting over the line on election day. We've got approximately 90 days. 90 days. Now, incidentally, I just watched a Terry Opines video this morning, a little bit of a hat tip to him. He's been doing some good work, same as across the Rubicon channel. And they had a clip of Jacinda Ardern. And did you know that Jacinda Ardern took leadership of the Labour Party exactly 90 days before they came and won the election? And I thought, wait, isn't that interesting? Because we've got the exact amount of time.
Yeah, there's all these sorts of anomalies, and what our job is, and what my job is as the lead facilitator of this public movement, is to just stay completely centered on the things that really matter right now. I stick pretty close to the main messages, and that is to let all those New Zealanders and Kiwis that aren't fully awake or across these urgent topics, to keep on repeating the main point and staying on point around our messaging, which is, hey, New Zealand, wake up, because the very New Zealand Aotearoa that we love is about to get destroyed if this government has its way. And this next election is absolutely crucially important for all of us to stand up and prevent this government from eroding any more of our democracies and turning us into a slave state.
Yeah. But of course, if you have a look at the Cayman Islands, you think about it, it's a former banking colony of the Bank of England, currently run by criminals and involving a hell of a lot of money laundering. Now, people might not believe this, but New Zealand follows the exact same model. We're incredibly corrupt. Hell of a lot of money laundering goes through here, and we're a former colony of the Bank of England. So when it comes down to the financial means and things of that nature, people who listen to the show regularly may be aware that the government literally makes money up out of thin air, and then through our birth certificates, we have to pay that off for the rest of our existence. Yeah.
Yeah, so, absolutely, Vinny, and that's called fractional reserve banking. And so, a good thing for people to do is to understand, number one, how the Federal Reserve System was created, who created it, and why, and that the Federal Reserve System, as you know, is not federal at all. It's owned by four major families, who are oligarchs that want to control all aspects of the monetary system. And we are subject to it, as you say, Vinny. And so the whole financial monetary reform aspect needs to be closely investigated, because that's just part of the system which oppresses all of us, regardless of where we are in the economy ladder. It actually oppresses everybody, and we need to look at that, reevaluate it, and turn a system around and turn it into being one where the government and the financial sector actually serves the people rather than the people serving those sectors.
Which other sectors are we looking at here in terms of New Zealand that need to be rescued? My sister came over to have a look at my baby girl for the first time the other day, and during this drought, she tried to get a water tank installed in Auckland here, and Watercare, a private company, decided that they wouldn't allow it, and that nobody would be allowed it, And I thought to myself, how much monopolization of just life in general are people going to put up with? And I think the answer is, as much as it takes for them to suffer, once they suffer and they actually connect their suffering with the broader general issues, that's when they become particularly dangerous to the rulers of this world.
Well, exactly, and one of the live examples that I use in my presentations, I refer to the water wars of Bolivia, which happened in the 90s. You may be aware of, and what happened there. Of course, the World Bank and IMF, International Monetary Fund, had lent Bolivia a lot of money that they couldn't pay back. So what did they do? They brokered a deal for a private investment company to come in and buy the water infrastructure of Bolivia. That happened. They transacted it, and then pretty soon, that company started to turn up the costs of water for the people of Bolivia. And then, of course, they ramped up the pricing, they ramped it up. And then what happened was the people couldn't take it anymore, and they led a very violent coup or revolution. It was called the Water Revolution of Bolivia. And 800 people got hurt and 40 people got killed, but they got their water back. And so if people want to get a glimpse of what's ahead for us if Jacinda has her way, is full and total implementation of the UN program Agenda 30, and that would control everything. It controls your water, your land, what you do with it, what you grow, how you grow it, what seeds you use in doing that, and we need to be very worried. And of course, what you build, where you live. The education of your children, the medical sovereignty aspect, you won't have any. They'll control that, and they'll destroy all the alternative health industries, and they'll control military, they will control education, science, and money. It's incredible. It's total totalitarianism.
Be it animal, vegetable, mineral, or information source, ladies and gentlemen, a centralised bureaucracy funded by criminal bankers who steal the money off of you will be behind it. Okay? Now, the problem with the ordinary person is that they think all people are ordinary people. All right? And I did a post the other week just reminding people that there are people in this world who are not like you. They do not think like you do. They do not feel like you do. They will do things that you would never even think of doing. And they are real. They exist. Okay? And most people, I feel, are unwilling to accept that reality, that true evil does exist, and it's become a sticking point for a lot of people, particularly religious people, who think that this was a satanic trick, essentially. And I believe what we're living in right now is a world controlled by satanic reversion as an ideology. Now, to give the people just a bit of a background on that, it's pretty straightforward. You have Jesus' cross right way up, and then you turn it upside down. That's satanic inversion. Now, how that works on a governmental level is, say, for example, you'll have the Independent Police Conduct Authority. What does it sound like? It sounds like something that independently polices the police, right? Satanic inversion. Have a look at the Police Conduct Authority. Who are their employees? The police. So the police are meant to police the police, and complaints really don't get through. In fact, there was over 1,000 police whose complaints got upheld upon them, and not one of them went to jail. All right, and I think maybe one of them lost their job. And when I say lose their job, I meant they got fired from their current police station and then moved down the road to another one. All right, so essentially what we're dealing with right now is the perspex destruction of reality itself. Whatever you think is real, ladies and gentlemen, it could quite possibly be the opposite. And so it's good to see somebody else in New Zealand politics who seems to actually recognise this.
Oh, absolutely, Vinny. And just a couple of, wish I could call them fun facts, but just in terms of what you're talking about there's a couple of interesting things around the inversion of Christ's cross. If you look at when Pope Francis or any of the popes are sitting in the main sanctuary room where they have where they preach and they talk and things like that, you'll see that quite often not they do have an upside down cross in the back of his seat. And then he also carries the bent and twisted cross, which is it looks like a shepherd's pole, but it's not. It's got the cross of Christ on it, and it's twisted and bent, and so that's very much a satanic sign. But it's everywhere. That symbology is absolutely everywhere, and these things can only be successful if people remain ignorant and uneducated. And those types of control systems have been around for a long time. It's not godly, as you know. It's anti-godly, but it's anti-freedom. It's about controlling every aspect of a human's life. Now, I'm a Christian, but this political party and movement that the people have put me in front of is not a Christian organization. It is a political movement. We're not a pressure group. It's not an ideology. It's a public response to protecting ourselves, protecting the country that we love and our freedoms, because the very absolutely important thing that I keep saying in my live presentations is that if we don't have freedoms and rights and democracy, we don't have anything, and nothing else matters. Because at the end of the day, if they bring in this Agenda 30 program, they will repurpose the very land that we go hunting and fishing in. That'll become a special designated area where you'll need to have permission to go in there, but they'll repurpose those lands that we hunt in. So again, if you don't have democracy, there goes your outdoors.
Could I just interrupt there for a second? When they say, ladies and gentlemen, that you're going to need permission to enter these areas, it'll be just like the the Misuse of Drugs Act, where they say, hey, if there's a medical exemption for cannabis, and so everybody goes, oh, okay, that's okay, let's make cannabis illegal then, and then they never grant a single exception for any medical things. Just like that, they open these loopholes and they say, just to keep you safe, oh, don't worry, you can opt out of it or something like that, but they don't let you. All right, so sorry, just had to make that point.
No, you did right, and that's right, and that's how they do it. They restrict freedoms millimeter by millimeter, almost imperceptibly if you're not watching them close. And so, Agenda 30, they repurpose, at what they call recreational land. They repurpose farming land and agricultural sector areas that they'll end up controlling, so that they become state-controlled agricultural businesses. Again, Farmac, which I don't trust, they will super hyper position Farmac as a state-owned, non-negotiable.
Might want to put that puppy on flight mode.
Yeah, sorry, mate. Yeah, you're quite right. What's happening is, just FYI, every time I post something that says that I'm about to do an interview, what happens is that people start contact me during the interview. It's quite amazing. So
they want to get on you.
Yeah. It's cool. We this interview that we did last night with News Talk, it's had over 20,000 views today, and I actually had a strangely enough, and this is really, really good and really strange for a minor party that was fast becoming not a minor party. Is when you get media getting in contact with me like they did today to say, hey, what a great interview last night was. You've had over 20,000 hits. That's unusual. What else can we do? So that means that the message that we're saying, which is a very central, sensible, and articulated message, is cutting across all sectors of society, and now even the journos that may have doubted the argument are now starting to see the light, and they realise that if they don't support rights and freedoms, their own families are stuffed as well.
And let's not forget the popularity contest. All right. Now, Billy, how tall are you? No offense.
I'm only 5'10" and a half. There you go.
Okay, 5'10" and a half. Roundabout average height for a male. Okay. Now, statistically, the taller you are, the more likely you are to get elected. That's why when Winston Peters goes to the debates and things of that nature, he gets a little box, all right, to stand on. All right. The healthier you are, all right, the more likely people are to vote for you. And that first impression is created in the human brain in 1/1000th of a second, based upon only two aspects. How healthy are you, and what do you look like? That is what we're up against, ladies and gentlemen. Add on to that a population with an attention span lower than that of a goldfish.
Well, I think... from the feedback that we get, you did right, Vinny, because I learned about sales when I was a lot younger, and the first thing they say to you is that when people look at you, before they've even heard your pitch about what you're selling, they have made up their mind within 30 seconds or less that they're going to buy off you. And so and that's what I say to some of the other MPs from other parties. You look at them and they look like they've just walked out of their bathroom or their bedroom, and it's the public they need to look at people and get some confidence that these people are going to know how to do the job if they get in there, and that they know what they're talking about. And I absolutely take seriously the way that I present myself, and when I do my broadcasts and when I turn up at to do meetings, and that they can see a professional person that knows what my subject matter is, and that we're going to actually have the skills and the experience and expertise that once we do get in government, we can affect the right outcomes. And if you can't give people that, then why the heck should they vote for you? And the other thing is, as well, is about integrity and honesty. And I always say this: if you can't trust an MP in Parliament, why the heck are they there? You need to get rid of them.
Now, let's think about this. I believe that a political solution alone is not going to solve this crisis that we're dealing with. This is essentially, we need a complete 180 realignment of public consciousness. That's what we need. Now, that's not actually a terribly difficult task. It has happened before throughout history, and there's an old African saying that once a lion is approaching a herd of zebras, if 6% of that herd of zebras becomes aware that a predator is approaching, suddenly the entire herd becomes aware and they start moving as one in the right direction away from danger. If we can get 5 to 6% of the New Zealand population ready, willing, and able to give their all, you could see a massive change in consciousness that would actually change the way this country runs, with or without government.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right, Vinny. And I think what's happening here, the guy that we did the interview yesterday, he wanted some numbers up from us about, how many people have seen us, how many people are a part of the party. Well, just number one, before I say that, is that no one's more surprised than I am to be sitting where I am today. I've never had any aspirations to be a politician, never trusted them, typically don't like them, and very skeptical, and certainly I don't even like the Beehive. I was there the other week, but it was a response to the calls from people when I started doing these broadcasts to go into just make a stand, I guess, on their behalf and voice the concerns. So what's happening is, with the numbers that we've seen, we've now had well over 700,000 people dial into the message that we've been saying, which is the public's message. Out of that number, we've at least 98% of it, it's been absolutely wonderful, fantastic feedback. We worked out the other day that if we could only convert 30% of that into votes for us, we'd actually have up to 12 MPs in the House, which would give us a very, very strong People's Movement Party in the system in there. But even from the membership sign up for members to the party, as you know, you need 500 odd registered members to become a fully recognised party, and normally it can take months, it can take a year to get those sorts of numbers involved in getting your registration numbers that you need. We did it in 2 days. In fact, we did just under 700 in 2 days. And as of 2 days ago, which was about a week and a half, 2 weeks later, we've got 2,250 members.
And also to remind the people who are watching us live on YouTube right now, open the chat box, and in there I've just popped a link that says join, and the link to actually join the party there. So we are talking about something that is completely out of left field. Now I want to address some of those suspicions and things of that nature. There has been talk that this is all manufactured, that it's some kind of a ploy to destroy the smaller parties or something of that nature. Could you speak to those, because you've had a history involvement with the UN at some point, and people have got these red flags going up, and I think that they're justifiably suspicious because of all the stuff that's been happening in recent years. So I'd like you to in detail be able to alleviate some of those concerns, preferably.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and we've been doing that. And that is actually, we've been doing that from day one, and that's why I actually haven't removed my photo with Helen Clark and my two Māori colleagues that were with us on that trip, because to remove that would be admitting or perpetrating some sort of
cover up,
some sort of cover up and dishonesty. Well, number one is that the three of us were there at the UN to try and get some money as three private Māori individuals that care about our people and all people, to hold an Indigenous event in New Zealand for all Indigenous people to come to New Zealand. These are people, from Scotland, Celts, Scandinavia with the Samis, Africans, all around the world, to come to New Zealand so that we could work out how we don't remain slaves to the system, how we can get ourselves out of poverty, and how we can share culture with each other. So what we had done is, as a very small team, we went over there to meet the UNDP to see if there was any money that we could get for support back here in New Zealand. We weren't being supported by the Māori Development Agency Te Puni Kokiri, which astounded us. And so we went over, had the meeting with Helen Clark, and basically what came out of that is two things. Number one is that we realised that the entire Indigenous program within the United Nations was tokenism and a farce. Number two, we realised that we had to, in any chance of getting money from them, we would have to become an NGO status group, which we were not prepared to do that in any shape or form. And number three, we also realised that that what they're interested in globally is keeping people in an enslavement environment, and we completely reject that. And we stand against it. Jeepers, I've been doing all my lectures against the UN, and I have done for a while, even before any of this. And so that was pretty explained. And also, when I was working with the First Nations family in Canada.
Oh, we seem to have dropped Billy there somehow. Uh-oh. That's not good. We seem to have lost Billy, folks. Maybe you can try calling back in, brother. If you can still hear me, just try and drop out and call back in. Other than that, I did want to actually get through the website itself at the moment, and you have a look at here the New Zealand Public Party. Over here, there's the Join Us thing, and there are a lot of things to see on over here. No donations can be taken now, not until the party is officially registered with the New Zealand Electoral Commission. If you wish to donate to the New Zealand Public Party above and beyond the $15 member fee, please contact us so you can put in all your details here, ladies and gentlemen, and get that up. I'm going to pop that into the chats as well for you guys, so that you've got a little bit of opportunity to sign in there if you can. This is your first time listening to the Vinny Eastwood Show. I've been doing this for about 10 years and surviving 100% on your donations, ladies and gentlemen. So if you do want to support the show, go to thevinnyEastwoodshow.com and donate there today through the PayPal, KiwiBank or Patreon. Now we're going to try and see if we can get Billy back. I'll give him a wee ring on the Schmel phone. There we go. Just give him a wee text. Ring back, bro. Bro, it's still going. All right, ring back, bro, still going. All right, there we go. Excellent. Okay, so let's think about the NZPP, the whole idea. And Kevin Hansen has pointed out a very, very important note over here. Says, keep voting in a rigged system. And I completely understand that mentality. Now, let's think about this as not a political party that's necessarily going to go and be part of the system in the election and that kind of thing. You need to be thinking about this in terms of an actual movement, doing what needs to be done, regardless of political stuff. There we go. Oh, he just gave me a call. Got him on the mobile. We'll see if we can do that. All right. So sorry about these. Hey Billy, we've got you on the mobile here, kind of thing. So you can rejoin that Zoom. You got to go through. Just go and click that link again. Yeah. Ooh, a little bit of bad reception there, brother. So just click. Yeah, click back in the Zoom, and you'll come straight back up. Should be here. Got me in the background there. Sorry, having a little bit of trouble understanding you there. Just zoom back in, and it should work just fine. So sorry about this, folks. Yeah, like the technical issues. It's saying I won't let you in. Okay. Okay. Let's try stop sharing my screen then. Participants. You are using enhanced decryption. It's saying I won't let you in, huh? So let's try.
Please wait. The meeting host will let you in soon. Vinny Eastwood.
There you go. 2 participants. There you go. It looks like you're there. Admit. There we go. Gotcha.
There we go.
Sweet. All right. All right. Excellent. Reconnecting now, folks. So sorry about that one. All right. And we're back with Billy. Thank you very much for joining us, folks. So let's go back to my share screen. I believe I had the Zoom thing over here on the share screen. There we go. And sharing now. Okay. There we go. And you're back. Right. Sorry about that, brother.
Yeah, so I was on a good point there. Isn't it funny that you start destroying the UN and suddenly everything stops? And that's not the first time it's happened to me, by the way. So when we got there, we got to have a good look at the place, and you get the feeling that it's just, it really is. It's almost otherworldly when you walk around. It's strange. It feels weird. And whilst we were there to try and to get some funding to do this Indigenous program, that we couldn't wait to leave the place. And then, of course, we found out later that in order to receive funding that we would need to become a UN status NGO, and we were not prepared to do that at all. And so what's happened, and you did right, and I want to pick up on those things. I've had people and trolls sort of claim that I'm a UN secret agent, I'm a communist, I'm a Scientologist, I work for the Chinese Communist Party, I'm a Freemason and everything like that. It's really come out of the woodwork. And what we've been doing is, as ludicrous as that sounds to us, we've been answering all those things. And as soon as anyone says something about me, I post it straight up on my front page of my Facebook page. And I talk about my background a lot in my presentations, because like I say to people, if I'm kind of lucky because I've been a musician as most of my life. And so there's a lot of my life that's actually, really quite accessible to the public if they want to have a look at it. And music videos, songs, tours, you name it, it's all there. And I've got a very humble, small little business called Indigenous Business Consultants, and we try and help Māori and Pacific Island business progress, and we advise them, and it's a good little thing to do. But everything's basically there. I live a very humble life, and it was that sort of background, however, that gave me all the skills to be able to examine what we're dealing with and talking about today. And so what I did was, when we responded to the calls of the people for me to make a stand and get into politics, I resisted it for about a month. I really, really did. My wife didn't support it because of my dislike of politicians and my view of them. I certainly didn't want to be one, but I got encouraged more and more and more by public. My broadcasts were going viral, 50,000, 20,000, 70,000.
You could become a new demographic, the self-hating politician.
Yeah. Well, you know what's so funny? I actually kicked my presentations off to people saying that I really genuinely am the most reluctant politician you'll ever meet. And but I've now become a very, very determined and task-focused one. But I'm not the career politician that people are used to. I'm actually the people's man. I always say that. I say I'm no communist man, I'm no CCP man, no UN man. I'm my wife's man, I'm God's man, and I'm the public's man. That's what I am. And I accept people regardless of where they're from, what their persuasions are, because this fight that we're fighting today is just so vastly important that we need to unite together as a family to defeat it. Your other questions there, and I think we need to go to that because they're important to me, is around the other parties. Now, what I did immediately when I got into looking at this whole political realm, I approached most of the parties. I started researching them. I started examining the basis that they formed their party on and what they stood for. And what came to me immediately is that really most of these minor parties, they have very, very narrow niche appeal policies and what they stand on, whether it be monetary reform as one silo, whether it be outdoors, one silo, whether it be, you name it, whatever. They tend to be very, very tiny channels. Not saying they're not important, but they are not the most important. And what this movement is, this is a broad-based, essential message platform and movement. And, we're getting everybody, every type of person you can imagine coming into the movement. We're getting people that are jobless, people in business, we're getting Pākehā people, we're getting Māori people, Pacific Island people, African, Sri Lankan, Europeans, Taiwanese, Chinese, you name it. Because one of the things that stands out and that people are starting to wake up to is that a lot of Chinese people that moved here to escape Chinese communism, and what they're seeing now is a form of it appearing right before their eyes, and they're deeply afraid and concerned. I met an East German couple on Saturday night in New Plymouth that were just, that was Sunday night in New Plymouth, that were absolutely petrified that the East Germany that they left behind when they moved here is what they're starting to see arise here, and they know what it smells like, looks like, and they were very fearful on it. So
I've had identical conversations with Russians and South Africans.
Have you? Yeah, well, they know what it's like. We don't in New Zealand, and that's why the government is able to pull the wool over our eyes. But what I did is that I spoke to parties and said, hey, guys, here's a really broad base here. We've got some key messages that are the most important to the public that are getting behind the movement. And it was just, it was really incredible. I had one guy tell me within 30 seconds that his party and his message wasn't appealing, was only very, very minor in its appeal and not the most exciting. And I'm sitting here looking at this guy, thinking, how can I work with him, and how can we work together and all that, and that's how he sort of represented himself. So that wasn't a nice introduction to him and his party. But what I did say to him, I said, look, some of the things that you're standing on here in your party politic are very important to the overall policy program that the New Zealand Public Party stands for. And there's definitely a role for you here. Why would you keep trying for dozens of years to get into Parliament, knowing each time that you're probably not? Why don't you be a part of something that is so broadly supported and come on board this? But he after saying that very same thing about how unattractive and how sort of poorly they do, he said, yeah, I'll think about it and let you know. And I've had the same conversation with all of the parties, and what disappoints me is the way that the minor parties behave, really. Not all of them, and I won't name them, but I've had other leaders of other parties, say that I'm in bed with National, I'm a communist, all this just absolute nonsense. People that I spoke with right up front asking for their advice and all that, but have got their knickers in a twist that when they post something on their Facebook, they get 30 likes and 30 views and maybe one share. In 2 hours, I post something, and in 2 hours, the public pick it up and they push it out, and there's 30,000 views, 1,500 shares, and 1,000 likes. And that's not me doing it. That's the organic nature of the movement, and the public do it for you if the message is right, and they get behind you and they push you into Parliament. And that's what's happening here.
That's another thing that's been noted in sales as well, is the power of what's it called, the word of mouth.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's the media guy that interviewed me last night. He said, look, he goes, he said it in two parts. What I'm about to say. The first one, he said, look, you are clearly the most broad-based, articulate guy here, out of all the party members, other party leaders that he's spoken to. Why don't people come in behind you? And I addressed that, but then he said to me, in terms of your appeal, what is it? And I said, well, it's simply because it's the people's message. We may not have all the money in the world. In fact, we're very upfront. We've had some koha, but we're thinking probably today we'll get our merchant account sorted, so we'll be able to take donations and memberships and all sorts of that good stuff. But it's not the financial infrastructure. It's the people infrastructure that does it for you. And we learned at the last election, we had Kim.com put in 3.5 million into his campaign. We saw Mr. Gareth Morgan from the Opportunities Party put almost 4 million into it, and they didn't get over the line. Why was that? It's because they didn't have the people infrastructure, and we do, and that's all the difference.
I think a line from Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, springs to mind, one free man defending his home can be more powerful than 10 hired soldiers. So, that's the
right.
thing, ladies and gentlemen. You've got people who are hired guns. Now, me, right here, I'll admit to you, ladies and gentlemen, I'm being paid, okay? I am a hired gun, but I don't do what I do by the hour or by the ticket or anything like that. I do what I do because I'm afraid of getting exterminated. Right? Like, pretty much that's my that's my motivation in life, is to not get exterminated. Now, don't get me wrong. It's on my bucket list. I do want to one day find out what all the fuss is about. I want to go to the Labour prison camp, and all my friends will be there. And will be like, "Hey, bro, I haven't seen you in years." "Oh yeah, bro, they got me at the bus stop." That kind of thing. That's what I'd really like to see. But in terms of that fantasy monologue, let's think about this, ladies and gentlemen. How many times have you heard anybody on the political stage be able to say anything like this, let alone get any of this kind of traction? Now, there's one reason for it, and that's the real reason for the ongoing success of the Vinny Eastwood Show. How I am still here is because I'm not bullshitting you. I'm being genuine the whole time. Human beings can smell lies. They can sense deception, okay? When you're straight up and you don't pull your punches, that's when people begin to trust you and abandon the rest of their reasoning that goes, what if he's UN? What if he's CCP? That kind of thing. So, you get up there and you say the most controversial truths of our time, and anybody who's been sitting around getting shit from their families for speaking such words for the last decade or something, their hearts will open up immediately, and they'll be so appreciative and so supportive that there is actually something that they can get behind, which is what something old activist Penny Bright told me. If you want to get anything done in a movement, you've got to make sure it's wide at the base and narrow at the tip. You've got to have exact objective that you're wanting to, and you've got to have as many people behind that as possible.
Well said, Vinny, and that's absolutely true because, what a lot of the minor parties haven't realised is that, that they're majoring on the minors, and that's not sufficient for what we're dealing with right now. And on that note too, we're getting so many diverse types of people involved with this. Some of these people that have come up to me out of the crowds, they're very, very conservative looking people. They look like chemists or doctors, or they look like, someone's school teacher, and that they come straight up to me and they just absolutely unload on me about how they've been watching Agenda 21 and Agenda 30 for years. They know all about it. They know it's not a conspiracy. It's a fact. It's coming at the free people of the planet, and we better wake up. And these are people that you wouldn't think would be marginalised if they said anything, but they have felt that they need to sort of be underground, but now they're out and they're pushing it. I just saw a question come up, and this is really, really important. I just seen one of the a question that came up from Michelle. Thank you, Michelle, for that question, and I want to answer it directly. We've had Sue Gray from the Outdoors Party say that we're not going to be registered in time, that we're not going to be able to go into Parliament and all that nonsense. It's totally untrue for two reasons. Number one, all of the new parties are all in the lodging and the submission process to become eligible to be voted for. All of them, not just us, but all of them. Secondly, we actually have, which we can't talk about now, we actually have a couple of parties that we're talking with who we are going to merge with. And so they will come in underneath the NZPP umbrella, and we will work with them. And so we've got some really good options that we're not doing all of this blooming hard work, miles, hours, blood, sweat, and literally tears, because I have fallen on my knees a couple of times because of hearing stories from people that break my heart, around all sorts of issues. And that, we're not going through all of this nonsense to not get into Parliament. And it's only the fear of the other party leaders, because of this meteor called the New Zealand Public Party streaking past them. They don't know what to do. And so the best thing they can try and do is to either try and discredit me, calling me a communist or a UN person or whatever, or they just lie. And that's what they're doing. And it really disgusts me, because I actually expected more from the minor parties, because we're all fighting a common enemy. We all know that this government is off, but what I didn't expect was the type of behaviour of the major parties. I've been told, like you, Vinny, that I'm a person of interest by the government, that they're watching me. I better be careful, this, that, and the rest of it. And
but what you don't expect is to be ambushed by people that should be fighting the same fight together, and it astounds me that that's not the case. It really does.
Well, I learned that the hard way. I mean, I started off in cannabis-only activism, that kind of thing, and then cannabis opened my eyes to a lot of other issues, that kind of thing, and staying part of the cannabis movement alone just simply wasn't good enough anymore, because there is a lot more worlds out there to explore and understand. So that's one of my main things, was joining movements and then seeing that they didn't actually care about the broader issues, or they were incompetent, they weren't competent enough to actually stand any real threat. Now, I believe this is the reason why they haven't been gang-stalked by police. They haven't been massively sabotaged and had public campaigns and attempts to destroy these minor parties yet, because they're not a real threat. That's the reason why this show is still around, because I've just been walking around in the background, helping out all the people that need help. I'm not a real threat. I'm not going after the enemy. Now we are. Now we need to understand that we're going to become targets. But let us understand that although you are vulnerable, although you are mortal, if you weren't, there would be no such thing as heroes. Okay? It is only because you are capable of being broken that you have courage.
Absolutely.
And people need to understand that it is now or never. It is do or die. This is the last election that you could possibly participate in this country's history, where you won't be a slave guaranteed by the next election. Okay? That's what the seriousness of the situation, and I believe people need to understand that, because we've got 90 days, people, 90 days to take something from nothing to being capable of overpowering the ruthless, criminal, sociopathic scumbaggery elements within Parliament. By that I mean the entirety of Parliament.
Yeah. No, you did right, even with the maniacal laugh at the end of that statement, Vinny. It is the election of elections. And what I can continuously say to people, if they don't act now and they don't stand, then really what's going to happen is they're going to wake up to a New Zealand that they don't recognise. And I actually had someone say to me the other day, one of the leaders from another minor party said to me, "Oh, Billy, if we don't get in this time, we'll get it. We'll get in next time." Well, no, that's the most. I can't believe that type of defeatist, uninformed sort of perspective, really. Because if we don't get in there now and halt what's happening and slow it right down and fix things up inside this system that has no constitutional protection for our citizens, if we don't get in there in this election, it's gone. It's completely gone. I don't know if we'll ever get an opportunity like this, and that's not a fear-based message, that's an education-based message, because at the end of the day, we're going to have no one to blame but ourselves if we wake up to authorized officials with their clipboard and high-vis suit coming into your land to take you and your family away to have a forced medical procedure. And as all thinking New Zealanders, when they think it through, will come to the same conclusion that we cannot stand for that. And that's been the whole basis of this public movement, is that people have recognised that these are the essential issues of most importance. And if the other parties aren't standing for them, well, your attention needs to come into this, because this is the movement that's going to get in there. You raise another point I just want to tackle it as well, Vinny, is that the competency of the other parties as well. You know, I really seriously looked at all of those types of issues in the other parties, and the key issue is the lack of depth outside of their key area of interest in the other areas. You know, whether it be families, whether it be criminality, whether it be international trade and relationships. You know, most of these other minor parties they're very much one-trick pony type situations, and that's not even sufficient. What we need to do is make sure that any party that goes in there that can swing the vote, and then therefore control the House and how it functions, then that needs to be an opportunity to address a number of the endemic faults in the government and issues that need to be fixed. And if you don't have the skill sets and the expertise and competencies to deal with them, then you're just going to be a one-trick pony. And that's the disappointing thing about the Greens, is that they started out being about, obviously the Green, because I used to support them as well. They used to be the Green Party, but now they're really just a socialist extension to the Labour Party. And, all these things that really matter, don't matter anymore. And they're supporting Agenda 30, which is the complete destruction of our environment for us as Kiwis and having access to it, complete destruction of having the freedom to grow our own vegetables without GMO seeds from Monsanto. And so really what they have done is expose themselves most dastardly. And I don't think they're going to be there after the next election.
Now, we've got a question on what we're going to do about firearms. We'll get to that in a second.
Sure.
Sun Tzu, the Chinese general, one time he was surrounded by his enemies. You know what he did to win when he was completely surrounded with no hope of escape? He burned all the wagons. He burned all the food. He tipped out all the water. Then all of his soldiers knew that there was no escape, that there was one fight. There was one way to survive, and that is through the enemy. Okay? That is the mentality that we've got to have right now, ladies and gentlemen. Peter Rouse, one of a great mods, and by the way, thank you very much to all the mods in the chat there. He's asked, with 1 million gun owners in New Zealand, what is the New Zealand's NZPP's stance on gun ownership, assault rifles, and things of that nature?
Absolutely, and it's a question I get asked all the time. So I'm an ex-military man. I've done lots of firearms training.
There's a little bit of something ringing there on that side.
Hold on.
That's a Facebook thing somebody's ringing on, I think.
Stand by. Golly, and they're all watching me on Facebook because I can see the numbers coming up. So that'll vanish. All right, mate, that'll vanish in a second. I'll try and talk over it if you don't mind, because I've killed it on one part and it's still going.
It might be on the phone there or something. Either case, whoever it is that's calling, stop calling, yo.
Yeah, please don't call. I mean, it's don't you find it amazing that people are watching me and they ring me up and it bless their souls and want to talk to me during doing something like this. It's quite it's gone, so it's out of there. Answering your question, thank you, mate. So about the firearms, this is really important. So I live in rural New Zealand, as everyone knows. Everyone around me has firearms and hunting rifles, etc. And I absolutely support that is a natural right and freedoms issue for our people that live in New Zealand, especially our rural communities, because we use our firearms. We go hunting with them, we do target shooting, all that sort of neat stuff. And what we've seen is a planned and systematic strategy to disarm Kiwis, and no other blooming party is talking about it. I did the other day, like I do about farming, and I care very deeply that safe handling of firearms is number one, but access to firearms actually should be a proven part of the rights and freedoms aspect of our country. What I don't believe in is that people should ever drink or use drugs. Obviously, using firearms, I believe they need to be, safely looked after, that the protocols in handling firearms are maintained, and that you don't give the wrong people firearms licenses. But the issue is, of course, is that the people that you wouldn't give firearms licenses anyway have already got the weapons. So, so that's not the issue. So the issue really is not restricting access to that. And under this current government, and you'd know this very well, Vinny, is that one of the things that totalitarian socialist governments do is disarm its citizens, so that the threat of armed resistance is evaporated.
Just correct you on that, not completely. They disarm the citizens, yes, but only the citizens who support their opposition. For example, in Germany, they registered weapons because they had a lot of unregistered weapons left over from World War I that were in ex-soldiers' homes. So when they registered those weapons, they also, on their registration form, asked, by the way, do you support the communists or the fascists? And they go, well, I support the Communist Party. Oh, okay, thank you very much for that information. And then they walked around and they took all the guns off the communists. And then it became a fascist state because when anybody tried to resist, only fascist supporters had guns.
Yeah, exactly. I think the quote I'm referring to is by Lenin himself, where he said, if you disarm the citizenry, you're going to control the population. And then years later, Kissinger picked that up. Henry Kissinger picked that theme up, but he replaced weapons with food. Control the food, you control the people. But what's happening here is that we're seeing a very systematic and exponential destruction of rights and freedoms, and the firearms issue is as much a part of it as the other things as well. And I've had a really good guy in New Plymouth come to talk to me. He represents a number of firearms users in his community, and he asked me the same questions. And I support firearms. I support safe handling of them, and people having right to those firearms and not restricted without blooming good reasons. And I don't think I think this is a freedoms issue. So I support firearms.
And 30 plus round magazines, things like that.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's gonna anyone with a firearms license is going to walk down the road with their 30 round mag down the middle of Queen Street and shoot up downtown Auckland. I don't believe that for a second. I think you'll get nutters that'll do that, but they'll be the ones without the special permits to have semi-automatic weapons like that. And so I'm all for people having rights to that, again within the confines of safety and people
if I may,
use, but not restricted.
We had Mike Loader from not Coalfoil, but the Kiwi Gun Blog on last week, and he says it's not about the guns; it's about the gun holders. Is this person got mental problems? Has this person got a short fuse? Has this person got enemies or something like that? Because once you have a license and you've been verified, licensed holders of firearms in this country are responsible for approximately, roughly, if you rounded it off, 0 murders, 0 crime, that kind of thing, right. So anybody who's going on about this whole thing, the white supremacists or whatever, let me ask you a question. Did all the gangs hide in there, hand in all their firearms and things of that nature? Did they? No, they didn't, because they're not licensed firearm holders and they ain't registered, yo.
That's exactly right, and that's why it failed so miserably. This whole disarm the citizens and hand in your rifles and we'll buy them back campaign that they did. They had very, very few licensed weapons handlers and owners hand anything in, and then of course none of the criminal community did it either. So there you go, proves it doesn't work.
Okay. Speaking of proving it doesn't work, government and securing people's freedoms. I don't think it necessarily is well known for that. And of course, they keep ramping up these crises and then taking away rights, and then the crises never actually end. Like, how many times have we been bombed by terrorists in this country since 9/11? Exactly. I think 0. And did we get back all those restrictions? Did we stop all that mass surveillance? No, we didn't. Okay. So this is what's problematic as well, because I'm anti-government just in general. I believe in no masters, no slaves, and that my support for this party here is just simply tantamount to betrayal of my beliefs, but for one point of fact, that I'm not looking for a political solution. I'm looking for a people solution. People solve problems, governments don't. And if you've got a group of people who are independently thinking, morally conscionable, and competent, it doesn't matter what vehicle that they're in. They can do some real damage to those who want to enslave people, and they can do a lot of support for those people who wish to be free.
Exactly, and if the public ever want to see how an effective and strategic negotiator with a small percentage of the House can create damage, and unfortunately was damaged in the wrong way, because it damaged us as citizens, was just look at what Winston Peters did from New Zealand First when he negotiated going to Jacinda. He basically he held both parties, National and Labour, at hostage. Basically he had a list of demands. They weren't requests and they weren't negotiable, and basically went in and said, okay guys, I want this, take it or leave it. And he got what he wanted, and I believe now he's suffering for that at 1.8% and decreasing support in public. We pulled into a petrol station the other day in the King Country to get some fuel. I bumped into two NZPP supporters. Two weren't together, just two separate ones, and they were both former NZ First supporters, and they've come over to NZPP because they know that career politicians like that really are the epitome of distrust, really.
Yeah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time today. Billy, you're absolute legend, mate. And let's win. All right. And there is no second place in this one, ladies and gentlemen. We win or we die. Give every single drop of your blood. Give every single drop of your sweat. Give every single tear you have got left in your body to this election cause, ladies and gentlemen. You will not get a second chance. This is it.
Absolutely right, Vinny, and thank you for having me. I look forward to doing a lot more with you guys. And just to all the listeners and viewers out there, it's really super important, as Vinny has said probably more times than I today, that that you get behind a movement that's got the central issues that we all need to be very, very concerned about. At the head of the movement are these issues. Don't waste your vote, because this is a people's power movement, and it's like nothing NZ politics has ever seen before. The big parties are scared of us. The little ones don't like us because they know that this is something that you could never plan with all the money that in the world. It's really the people's movement, and we are going to get into Parliament, and we're going to make these changes to protect all of us in New Zealand so that our babies have a free future ahead of them.
That's right. Thank you very much, Billy. Ladies and gentlemen, do you know how you get to the top of the Chinese Communist Party? By saying nothing, by coming up with no ideas, by keeping your head down. You know why? Because if you're original, you've got ideas, and you're competent, you will make all the rest of the communists look really bad, and they will hate you, make up shit about you, and tear you down like crabs in a bucket. So you wind up getting the most mediocre and pathetic in charge. That is not the way we want to do it, folks. Find out who you truly are. Stand up for what you truly believe. And do not look back. Do not ruminate on the past and your failings. Be forward thinking. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to the Vinny Eastwood Show. My very special guest has been Billy Te Kahika from the NZPP, the New Zealand Public Party. You can check that out at nzpublicparty.org.nz or simply nzpp.org.nz. You can sign up, have a look at their policies and things of that nature. They've even got a little media page. Follow them on Facebook, Twitter, and their new YouTube account has nearly 400 subscribers. In order to live stream from that account, ladies and gentlemen, at a minimum to live stream from that account, which I hope to help out the party with in future, you need a minimum 1,000 subscribers. So if you are watching this video right now, I want you to go to nzpp.org and I want you to .nz, sorry, and I want you to click on the little YouTube link. It's right in the top corner here, and you can see that little YouTube link. Give them 1,000 subscribers so that they can use that channel to live stream. That's the one goal that we want from this show. We want to accomplish something tangible every single show that we do, while I'm selling my journalistic credibility down the toilet by supporting a political party instead of just criticizing everything that happens, which is my job, bro. But yes, okay, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this is a listener supported broadcast. So go to thevinnieeastwoodshow.com and you can donate through KiwiBank, PayPal, and you can support me on Patreon. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to the Vinny Eastwood Show, the lighter side of genocide. Just because we're being exterminated doesn't mean we can't make it fun. Otherwise, what's the point of being killed? The Vinny Eastwood Show, where the only thing worse than living in a high-tech global police state is Vinny's jokes.